This is Robert Solomon from the AC Guys, and we are doing a preventive maintenance at Mr. Knight's home. He was kind enough to let us do this. So what we would like to do here today is go through every process that we would do on the preventive maintenance, and this is going to be a cooling preventive maintenance. So I've got Dave, and he'll show up in the video here shortly. I'm the lucky one to do the narrating, so hopefully it turns out well. First thing that we typically do is introduce ourselves to the customer, ring the doorbell, knock on the door, which they're aware that we're coming because we call on the way. Just policy to let the customer know we'll be there in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or whatever. Then the introduction at the door. It's good to introduce yourself if you haven't been to this customer's house, and kindly and nicely, so they get good impressions. First impressions are typically what the customer goes on as a first impression, so try to leave them with the best impression you can. So we're fixing to enter the home and start there, which we'll typically go to the thermostat and we'll change the filters first. We don't want to check Freon levels and things outside without changing the filters, because airflow is very crucial to getting the proper Freon charge. So we got a stop duct filter. The Freon charge will look incorrect. So we'll do that first, and then we'll come outside and do the maintenance on the outdoor unit. We have entered the customer's home. We have introduced ourselves actually earlier. So we're entering the home, and one thing you have to do is be concerned about your feet and debris that you could bring into a customer's home. It's their castle, by the way. So we encourage and really recommend that you put these foot covers on or take your shoes off. Just make sure that your feet are clean before you enter the home, because the shop could get a call, and they'll get a call stating that we brought in a lot of stuff to their home that they didn't appreciate. So customer relations, got to do it. You know, sometimes it's a little challenging and you have to be disciplined to do it. So as we enter the house, it's a good idea to make it a habit that you glance up at the supply grills and things of that nature that pertain to the air conditioning, so we can make the customer aware they have some mold or some water stains around the grill. Very important to let them know this so we can correct the problem before it gets worse. This is Dave O'Neill. He's the one that's going to be doing the preventive maintenance. First thing we'd like to do is make sure the filters are clean, which I had mentioned earlier before we address Freon levels and things, because if filter's dirty, your Freon is going to look off. So we need to make sure that the filters are changed first, and any visual things that we can detect during this process, we'll note it, keep it in our memory bank so we can put it on our work orders. Dave's going to go ahead and change the filters in here, and then we're going to move to the outside condenser. In this particular application, the filter is located in the filter rack in the air handling unit. It also has another filter too in the hallway, so it's not a bad idea if you would, if you only see one that maybe is in the air handler, to maybe look around to see if you see another grill somewhere. This one's actually in the floor on down a hallway, so make sure you get all the filters changed and get them all dated as well. So if a customer happens to see a dirty filter and it's not dated, it's going to feel like it hadn't been replaced. But with your date and even your initial, if you choose to, that will ensure that will not take place.
And that's what Dave's doing now.
Dave is dating it. So
Right,
now we know when that filter has been changed, and so there's no question that we did do our job with the filter replacement. And it might not be a bad idea. We've slid the filter in, but it might not be a bad idea to take a glance at the coil while we're in that location.
Already did it.
Which he's already looked at, and the coil does need to be cleaned. So we're going to make arrangements to have that coil cleaned at a later date. And we'll come back in after we service the the outdoor unit. And one reason we do that is if the system is low of refrigerant, we'll have to leak check. So instead of servicing the air handling unit and taping it back up, sealing the air handler doors, we'll go outside, confirm Freon's okay, and then if it's not and we've got a leak somewhere, we'll have to take the panels back off to do a leak check. So that's why we like to do the condensers first. But filters need to be replaced because that affects your Freon charge.
So we pulled the disconnect,
Yep.
inspect the electrical. Contactors. Get it burn a little bit.
Dave's currently checking the capacitor. Capacitors have a tendency to get weak. So if you have a weak capacitor, it causes the compressor to pull more current, causes the windings to get warmer than what they're normally supposed to run. So it's just a good idea to confirm that it's up to par. And if it's below a certain percentage, it's about 6%, the manufacturer recommends replacement. So Dave's going to make that determination and tell us if we need to replace this capacitor or not. He's also going to look at the contactor as well while he's in that compartment. Contacts close, and over a period of time the contact wears and you could have some arcing take place, so the contact will become distorted, so every time it closes it arcs real bad, and then eventually you could have a situation where you're not getting enough voltage through the contact, or you're not getting any voltage through it. That can cause a problem. So we're here to do a preventive maintenance, and that's why we're here. We want to prevent things from occurring, and that's why he's checking these components. I think it's all right.
I mean, I would change it. So 45, it's reading 42.
Yeah, so that's 3 microfarads off.
Mm-hmm.
What about the fan side?
It's 4.9, it's good.
Because these capacitors are what they call dual capacitors, so they work 2 components in the system, one being the compressor and the other one being the condenser fan motor. So you have to check both of them to make sure they're the ratings from manufacturing specs. If it's diminished a certain amount, it's going to have to be replaced. And Dave said this is borderline.
It's right on it, 42.75.
So it's probably at the point where it needs to be replaced. So we're going to replace it, and we're also going to confirm warranty status because it could be under warranty. If this machine's over 10 years, no need to check warranty status. So we'll confirm that, and if it's not under warranty, the customer will have to pay the expense. If it is under warranty, they'll just send us one from the factory. Now we're going to get authorization from the customer to let them know what we're doing before we spend their money. So we'll let them know that the capacitor's weak and we advise replacement, and they can choose either way. And but we've done our job. We've let them know what's going on. So we'll eventually take this top off and remove the top so we can get in there to clean the leaves out of the bottom of the condensing unit. What I always like to do it's just something I feel like that kind of gives me some insight on the condition of the condenser fan motor. Generally take a screwdriver or something and just spin the blade like so. if you can see how it spins easily and continues to spin, so the bearings are probably not dry in this motor. So it's probably fine, and we'll actually check the bearings out whenever we get the top off so we can get to the shaft of the motor. But that tells me that the bearings are not dry. But if you was to spin that blade and the blade stop abruptly, typically the bearings are dry and possibly have leaked. Today's motors, you cannot lubricate, so once it gets to that point, you have to replace the motor. We're fixing to check the Freon charge now. We're going to get it back on. We'll have to let it run for a little bit to get some stabilization taking place. So we're going to cut it on at the thermostat.
Got dye in the system. That sucks.
So he's going to confirm that the Freon charge is what the manufacturer determines it should be at these conditions. Once he does that, he'll also check the superheat, which is another measurement that you take to determine that the Freon pressure is moving properly through the evaporator coil. Normally, most manufacturers want to see anywhere from 8 to 15 degrees superheat. If it's much above that, you could have a Freon problem. It may be low. You could have a valve that meters refrigerant into that indoor coil that could be malfunctioning and not metering Freon properly. So it really gives us a lot of insight into how this machine's performing. So he's going to have that information for us here shortly, and we'll be able to make a determination. Most manufacturers have charts that will help you to determine that the Freon levels are correct or not. There's parameters in which these Freon pressures should be at given outdoor conditions. So this helps a technician to get the Freon levels and determine the Freon levels are where they should approximately be. So with these measurements that we're taking now, with this information that the manufacturer provides for us, it's going to make it a little easier for us to confirm that these Freon pressures are right where they need to be. We've currently determined our Freon charge is correct. We're running a 10 degrees subcooling, and our superheat is what, Dave?
6 degrees.
6 degrees superheat, so Freon charge is probably good. It could stand to be a little higher, but today is a little cool to check cooling charge, so I feel like our Freon's okay. And our coil was pretty clean, so we opted not to clean it first, just because it takes so long for it to dry. Hard to determine, Freon pressures with a wet coil. So we're going to clean it now and clean the leaves out, address that part of the maintenance, and then we'll move to making sure the drain as it exits the house. Make sure that if it is in an attic, in this application it's not, that it's got a secondary drain on it, that the drain comes out the soffit, and make the homeowner aware of where it's at if they don't already know, because if you get water dripping from the soffit, typically the problem is your safety pan is full of water and you got a primary drain line that's clogged. So we also want to make sure where the primary drain line leaves the house that it's not covered up with dirt or leaves that could cause the flow to stop and the drain to back up. So we're going to look at that real quick and then move on to cleaning the unit out and washing the condenser coil. So over here, the drain's kind of in a very tight location, and you can see all the buildup where the drain comes out. It comes out with the tubing. So that needs to be moved back out of the way so the drain can flow properly, because obviously the buildup seems to be concentrated right behind the condenser. The condenser is kind of close to the wall. So we're going to try to clean that out to make sure that we don't have any restriction with water flow or condensation flow. And one other thing, if you look above, you'll see a soffit. See how the eave is right over the condensing unit? If you notice the condensing unit, where it's located, water coming off the roof will drain right into this condenser. Manufacturers don't recommend this, how much harm it causes over time. It's debatable, but it's always good to let the customer know to keep water from just draining off the roof into their machine. You can put a diverter up there and move the water to the right or the left of the machine to keep the water from draining in it. So just something that you probably need to make the homeowner aware. This one's obviously been this way for years. Obviously it's not hurting it a whole lot, but you can have trouble with rust and things, especially the closer you are to the beach, on the accumulator tanks and things, which are made out of steel, which is in this unit out here. So something to let customer be aware of, see if they want to do that. I've done it before. I've put sheet metal up there, or they could have their roofer do it. Just put a gutter right there if they needed to. I would like for the technician to be aware of the condensing unit, the levelness of the condenser. For one, cosmetically it don't look good. For another, the oil that is located in the compressor, it's a reservoir that if you are not level with your condensing unit, the lubrication of your moving parts in your compressor don't get lubricated properly. So from that standpoint, it really does need to be level, because lubricating moving parts in a motor like that is very important for longevity. You get some of the parts that may not be getting lubricated properly, could fail prematurely, and a compressor replacement's not a cheap repair. So pay attention to that. It does need to be leveled, and we'll address that with the customer. Now, this is one of these things that if you're a service tech, you have two options here. You can unplug the wiring, take the top completely off, and then clean the leaves, wash the condenser coil from the inside out. Other option is, which is sometimes a little more challenging, if you can prop this top up out of the way where you don't have to take it off, that's okay too. But the downside to that is, if it was to fall and snatch all the wires off all its connections inside this electrical compartment, defrost boards are probably going to have to be replaced, contactors potentially. So you feel comfortable with just leaning it up. If you feel like it's secure, that's fine. But if you don't think it's secure, we don't want to lean it on this blade, because you know what will happen to the blade. If you put a lot of attention on the blade, it's going to bend and it's going to be out of balance, and then when you cut it back on, it's going to be wobbling and making some vibrating noises, which we'll get a call on that this unit didn't sound like this until after we done the maintenance. So, and it's all because we laid the blade down on something and we warped it. So then we're buying a new blade, just to let you know. So that is an option for you. So we're fixing to take this top off and see if it'll lean up properly. If it won't, we'll just take it off. We was able to set it up. We feel pretty comfortable that we're not putting any tension on the blades that could cause some imbalance. But if we did feel that way, we would have to take it off. I know it's a little more, but rather do that than have to come back and put a new blade on. So we're in the process of cleaning out the condensing unit now, which is full of leaves. That's the internal compartment of the condenser. We like to keep the leaves out of it because they do decompose and turn acidic, and can rust the bottom out over a period of time. And it don't need to be on that aluminum coil if it ever gets that high. it causes the fins to rot. So good to keep them cleaned out. Water management too in the bottom of the unit's important. So the water runs in there, especially with our problem with our soffit. We do get a little extra water in there because of that, so it needs to run off, and with the leaves being in there, it's probably a little more of a challenge. See all that dirt in the bottom with the earthworms? Just an indication you had a lot of decomposed leaves that that's been in there for quite some time. It ain't good for it to be up against the compressor or the accumulator tank because it's steel. The paint was to flake off of it. It's just raw steel underneath, so it's not good to keep leaves in there for any length of time.
So all our should have these in like this and
You got romance. Good job.
That's good. Pretty good. What is that doing?
You made it to the system done last week.
Look at this. Oh, you can see it pouring out the bottom right here. Like, it looks like mud.
We just got all the leaves out. She's going to take some video of that as well. You can see the bottom, you can see the drain holes in the pan where the water has to flow out. Dave's washing the condenser coil out from the outside and the inside so we can make sure we get everything that's trapped in there. If you notice, the fins are real thin. So the dust sometimes gets stuck in the middle, so it don't look as dirty, but over time it can get pretty dirty. So keeping it clean, each maintenance is crucial to make sure the machine's performing properly. It has to pull air through that coil. As it pulls the air through the coil, the refrigerant gives the heat up that's in it and discharges it out the top. So if you got restriction and you can't move enough air, you're not going to have that transfer of heat that machine needs to do to perform to its peak performance. So it's important to keep them clean. Important to make sure, as we checked earlier, all the components are functioning, the contactors are not worn, no burnt wires, no loose connections. So very important to make sure that, because we want the machine to function with no problems, and that's why we call it a preventive maintenance. So anything we can prevent, we're going to do our best to prevent.
It's a little warm. It definitely needs to be good enough. You can't change both of those things. I'll show you where it's at. I already dug it out last time I was here, but I couldn't leave it.
Now, one thing too to keep in mind, if you use the customer's materials, whether it be a water hose or whatever, make sure you put it back where you got it from. If it's water, make sure you cut the water off. Have had some complaints. You know, our technician used my water and now I've got a $600 water bill because they left the water on. Whether that was true or not, no way to argue that one. So just make sure you put it back where you got it from.
Our lovely assistant.
Person can tell if this unit's had some attention or not. When it's full of leaves and it's out of level and it's just dirty, they can tell it's not been attended to like they felt like it should be. A lot of calls come in from, well, there's leaves in my condenser. Robert used to clean out the leaves every time he came over. So, you know, be better than me. You know, clean them out and spit shine. I may not have done this, but I think that's great. I think we need to do that.
Customer is the number one priority.
Lets the customer know that this guy cares about what he does for a living. So,
Go Dave.
yeah, Dave gets a kudos.
And that, you know, that took 2 minutes.
Right. Is that all you're on for 45 seconds? That's right, Tom?
No, it's like, it's a whole series like that.
We have concluded the outdoor portion of our preventive maintenance. To reiterate, we've checked the freon levels, subcooling, superheat, all within parameters. Checked the capacitor, it was a little weak. We're going to replace it. Contactor has some wear, moderate, maybe change it next PM. The condenser fan motor's in good shape. We cleaned the leaves and debris from the bottom of the condensing unit. If you'll look back in the video, you'll see that the openings for the water to drain now are visible, and the coil is clean. So everything disconnects fine. So I think we're in good shape outside. Now we're fixing to head inside to take a look at the air handling unit and service it. Now we're fixing to go to the air handling unit. If you can see our water tank down here, that's what we use to flush the drains with. It's just water that's got about 30-40 psi pressure behind it. Just jets the line out. These components here, hoses to cut into our drain lines, clamps to clamp the hoses on. Very, very, very important that when you do this, that it's on properly. Water damage isn't good for anybody involved. So a lot of issues with water damage when somebody fails to do what they're supposed to do when they reattach drains or when they cut into a drain. Sometimes things come loose that maybe was not glued properly. Got to be very observant whenever you're messing with a drain. But we're fixing to enter the home and go to the air handling unit. Going back into the home, we've been washing the condenser out and stuff.
What's up, doggy?
Might need to get me another set of booties. These are not attaching very well. This one has stretched out quite a bit.
Bigfoot.
Bigfoot, yeah, exactly. Don't know if it's even going to stay on. But anyway, you have to put booties on when you walk back to the house. We don't want to mud the house up. So Dave currently has detached the drain and he has flushed it with our water tank that I demonstrated it outside before we entered the house. So it's just like 30-40 psi pressure behind the stream water. So he just jetted the line out. So anything in the line should be outside where the drain exits now. He's currently putting Viper drain cleaner. It aids in reducing algae growth for a while. We really don't have anything that stops it completely, but as we do our maintenances, we can definitely reduce the growth over extended periods of time. Hopefully between the maintenances won't have any trouble with drain problems. He had he's having to redo this drain currently because it was not glued, and we feel more comfortable with it being glued. It could have been leaking, it may not have been leaking, we're not sure, but it's definitely far better to glue a joint. And we're having to add a section of hose so we can detach it in the future, hopefully easily. Sometimes this application is a little more challenging than some of the others, so trying to get it where we can take it apart without much force. So we have currently flushed the drain, so that's done, and he's putting the drain back together. We'll move on from that shortly and move up to the blower compartment, and also checking the coil for cleanliness. What we typically look for in the blower compartment is if there's a bunch of buildup on the blower wheel, dust or any mold or whatnot, something that warrants a problem that it may need to be removed and cleaned. Most of the time it's pretty moderate, don't really warrant the cleaning process. So if it does, technicians typically lets the customer know that it may have to return. Typically we don't allot enough time to clean a blower wheel, so may have to return and pull it and clean it. So as well as the coil if it's dirty too. So we'll be to that point shortly. Dave's in the process of gluing a joint. He's letting it dry, and then he'll finish hooking the drain up. But one thing as a technician you need to be aware of, and it's probably one of the most important parts of your job, is to make sure we have some safety of some sort to prevent material damage, floor damage, anything that can get wet that will cause a problem. We need to make the customer aware that we need some type of safety. Now this one, the way it's designed, if you can see the hole down bottom, very challenging to get a safety pan underneath it. It's possible, but very challenging. But we do need to make the customer aware that they need some type of safety. You can put an inline P-trap in there. You can put a wet switch in there that if it gets wet it just shuts the machine off. So there's them options out there. But nothing no more important than to making the customer aware that this condensation has to exit the home. If for any reason it can't and it backs up, it's going to the floor. Depending on when it gets caught, how much damage occurs. But if they have some measures put in place to prevent the machine from running when this occurs, shuts it off, can't make any more condensation, it eliminates the damage. What they could come home and find is my machine's not working. Technician comes out, finds out that the drain's clogged. So the safety done its job. It prevented the floor from getting damaged, but we need to give the customer the option to do this because in the event that it does happen, sometimes we get fingers pointed at us. So we want to avoid that at all costs. But this one you can't put a pan underneath it, so we do need some type of safety. Would be recommended. The customer has, it's their option to do or not do. But definitely note it, let the customer know, and that way, the for lack of a better word, the monkey's on their shoulders. So, but that concludes that section of it.
Gonna zoom all out. Yep.
We've removed the filter so we can take a look at the incoming side of the coil, and that's where the air goes into the coil, through the coil, and then through to the supply grills and supply duct system. We're going to take a good look at it. She's going to run the camera down or the video down and just see if the coil's dirty or not. Yeah, that's the coil right there. You can kind of see it. Yeah, the coil you can tell has some buildup on it. Probably does need to be cleaned. It's very moderate. Could be a little excessive, but it don't seem to be. It ain't completely clogged, put it that way. Probably could brush it off with a brush or something without using any coil cleaner, but definitely needs some attention for sure. So that's something we'll add to the list. Yeah, Dave's removing the door, so we will know what kind of metering device this machine has. So whenever we go outside here in a few minutes, we'll be able to know how to check the charge either by subcooling or superheat. And it appears, if you look at this valve right here, that's an expansion valve right there, right here. So we'll check the charge by subcooling. It's not a fixed orifice. He's putting more Viper algae reduction solution in the pan to prevent algae growth. It's almost like surgery.
I can tell. Wow.
But we're almost done.
Okay.
And there's a few things that we found that probably will be in the next maintenance that we do.
Okay.
Like the coil's not, it's got some buildup on it, so it probably needs some attention. And I'll make sure it gets done on the next maintenance. Capacitor's a little weak.
Right.
Contactor's a little worn.
This thing is, I think, 12 or 15
It
years
is.
old.
It's got some age on it. So we'll address that, and I'm probably going to come out with them on the next maintenance too. I'll be a observer. I just want to see. I just want to see what they
That's
find.
what he'll think, right?
That's right. And I just want to see for one what they find. And
See if they find those
see if they find the
symptoms.
items.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to have any trouble with that capacitor or the contactor or this coil being a little dirty. But
We'll see.
whenever we come back to do the spring maintenance, I'm going to go ahead and get Shelly to put it on my agenda to do.
Okay.
So I don't know, did you reach out to Mr. Knight?
I do.
Okay.
Most of the time, Mr. Knight beats me to it, though. I will say
Does he?
that.
Yeah, he's
He
on
does.
his game.
He's
no,
good.
She beats me to calling you.
I try.
So,
I try.
Now currently Dave's taking the door off, the blower compartment. Maybe we can see a little more better with light. And you can see some growth on the wires and things of that nature. Nothing very moderate for the interruption. Oh, so there is some buildup in the cabinet, very moderate. We always note in our work order just some moderate buildup, nothing to be concerned about in this area. Now, one of the areas that we could be a little more concerned about is the blower wheel. I don't know that you can see the blower wheel, but you may can move your camera over towards that opening, possibly.
Yes, I see it now.
What we're looking for is them louvers, these louvers right here, if they got a bunch of buildup in it. And if you look at it, very, very moderate, nothing to be concerned about. I don't think it warrants cleaning. Now, you know, we could always do maintenance plus,
Basic plus.
basic plus, excuse me. And you know, we could wipe this stuff down, but right now it's not a big concern to me, and I would make that aware to the customer that, you know, it is moderate. And then, you know, maybe in the next year or so we'll do a basic plus and where we wipe all the internal things down. So, but the blower itself looks pretty good. Now, this is an X13. You can check the bearings just by the play, the side-by-side play, but the module is right there on this other side. There. This one looks to maybe be the original, so it's been a good one. But not a whole lot to check. It don't have capacitors or anything. Just look for connections. Make sure you got good connections. Nothing burn on the line voltage wire nuts there. Things of that nature. What you can see of the ductwork, which is not a whole lot. Most applications, when you're in the attic, yes, take a look at the ductwork to see if you see anything busted or air leaks. But this application, you really can't do a whole lot with. So, but that concludes the service part of the air handling unit. Just want to make sure that, you know, your drains are attached properly. Very, very important. Make sure that your insulation goes all the way up to your air handler if it's in the attic. so we don't have condensation problems. If this was in an attic horizontal application, we'd be looking at pans. Make sure there's no rust in the pans. Make sure the safety pan can handle the water and go the right direction. Make sure we don't have plenums that are too small, or too large rather, excuse me. If they're larger than the air handler, it's problematic. So you got to make the customer aware of these things. So if it's got a secondary drain on it, make sure it exits the soffit, as we talked about outside. It's good to have the primary drain insulated, keeps from sweating on the ceiling, so you can make that recommendation to the customer. Make sure there's no bellies, no traps in the drain that you can see from the attic. Very important, prevent drain backing up and causing problems, especially when we just recently done a maintenance. Hard to explain whenever we just flushed the line, but let the customer know they could potentially have a problematic drain because it's real long or it's got a lot of bellies in it, so on and so forth. Just good advice, but keep the customer aware of these problems or potential problems. Write it down, type it into your work order, whatever you got to do, so they can see it in the building. All right, and collect, and we'll do that next video. The thermostat's something we like to check just to confirm that the batteries are good, or in some cases they're not even needed. So I'm going to take these batteries out, see what they look like. If you notice, the battery is corroded, and once that acid from the battery, if it gets onto any electronics below or wherever, can cause the thermostat to fail prematurely. I'm going to remove these batteries because I don't think we need them, because the 24 volts controlling the thermostat. Ooh, that was a job. But anyway, if you notice, my display is still on. I have 24 volts that illuminates and controls my thermostat. So I think the system's in good shape, and the only thing that's left is to make the customer aware of our findings and recommendations, convey it to them verbally, and then when you get in your truck, you need to put it on your work order. The same thing that you verbalize to them, because sometimes the things that maybe were discussed does not get translated properly, and when they call up, it's like, technician said this and the technician says I didn't say that. Get it all, you know, in writing on your work order. So it does take a little time, but you're in your air conditioning truck, so sit down and type. Some of y'all younger guys can really use them fingers and type real fast. So, well, that concludes our visit here at Mr. Knight's house. He was so gracious to let us come over here and do this video. So hopefully it'll be of some help to y'all technicians.
Thank you.